How hard or easy is it to fall from stardom to rock bottom? Stay tuned and find out.
Welcome.
Okay, here's the question.
Serious?
How are we dark horses? You know, the ones everyone is betting against, the ones they don't expect to win, place, or even show on the track, and they'll even laugh on us when we talk about trying. How do we show the world our greatness and triumph?
Come on.
Well, that's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers.
Let's go.
This is The Dark Horse Entrepreneur. My name is Tracy Brinkman.
And push it up.
What is up? What is up? What is up, my Dark Horse friends and family? Welcome back to your weekly dose of Picture on the Cover of the Rolling Stone Learning. I'm your Dark Horse host, Tracy Brinkman. And you? Well, that, my friend, is infinitely more important. You are a driven entrepreneur or business owner, or perhaps just one in the making. Either way, you're here because you're ready to start, restart, kickstart, just start leveling up with some great marketing, business, or personal tips and results in order to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. Man, today, another big episode. Today, Jay David talks about being different, constants and changes, protecting your content, and reminds us to stop blaming others, as well as so much more. Plus, I want to give you a little clue into next week's interview episode guest, who is a high energy, transformative speaker and movement influencer. As per usual, the Dark Horse Corral are chock full of personal, business, and marketing gold spilling from every corner of the Dark Horse Entrepreneur HQ. So let's get to the starting gates and go. All right, my Dark Horse friends and family, today's guest is none other than Jay David. Now, Jay David was the musician that played the drums for Dr. Hook in The Medicine Show and has also tried his hand at acting, where he has appeared on Glee, Smart Songs, and Somerset. And I know there was another movie he mentioned before that, but I'm going to let him tell you about that. All right, Jay, my friend, I got to tell you, brother, I've been listening to you from way back when. I'm sure things have changed over the years. But first off, welcome to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you, Tracy. I really appreciate chatting with you today.
Absolutely. And I've been looking forward to this one. I've been lucky enough to have a couple of cool names on this show. I had Kenny Lee Lewis on not too long ago from the Steve Miller Band. His wife was on recently. We're getting ready to air her show. So to have you on is kind of cool too. And I know we're probably going to take this conversation, but before we even go anywhere, I want to shut up my babbling mouth and let you tell, a little bit of your story. There's probably a number of folks that don't know who Jay David is, and the good, the bad, the ugly that brought you to where you are today, and why you love doing what you do so much.
Okay. Well, I've been playing music my whole life. I started singing on a radio show at age 2 in New York City on NBC, and in a show called the Horn and Hard Art Children's Hour, which was Horn and Hard Art. There was one of them left. There were hundreds at one point. They were a chain of automats where if you walked in there and you took a look in this little window, you saw a piece of pie you liked, you dropped a quarter in, opened up the door and took out that piece of pie. And it apparently when I was a child, it was a great big deal. So I got started early. I got involved in drum and bugle corps early, and rudimental drumming. And although I when I first went, I think I must have been around 6 or 7. And they said, "What do you want to play?" I said, "Soprano, bugle."
Yeah.
And, so they gave me a soprano and in the case and said, "Okay, take this home and try and make some notes out of it. Just try and blow into it and see what you can get, and we'll talk to you next week." So I did that, and it hurt. Man, did it hurt! Hurt my lips. So I thought, well, I'm not doing this. This hurts. Why would I want to hurt myself? And so I never went back. And a few weeks later, they came and retrieved their bugle. And the kid that retrieved it opened up the case and said, "Okay, where's the mouthpiece?" And I said, "Yeah, Mouthpiece? I don't know. I never saw one. And so, so that's when I went to drums. You know what I mean? The mouthpiece was gone. Anyway, I played in drum corps. I started in local bands, and gee whiz, it's a long career. I'll segue to 1966. And an agent saw me playing in New York City at a club called the Wagon Wheel on West 45th Street, 3 doors down from the Peppermint Lounge, and referred me to Brenda Lee. Mm-hmm. And so Brenda's managers flew me down from New York City to Jackson, Mississippi. You want to talk about culture shock? Oh my God! Yeah. Oh, I could feel the years going by as I flew back in time. You know, but and so I became Brenda's drummer, and I was her drummer for a year and a half until I got fired for making everybody laugh. You know, that's just who I am. I can't help it. And so anyway, I became a session musician, working on Mercury Records songs as the staff drummer. And some guy came and played me a demo of a song called The Last Morning. And the lead singer just blew me away. He was great. And so he said, well, these guys need a drummer. You want to go and sit in with them? I said, sure. Where are they? He said, well, they're in Union City. I said, well, great. I'm living in Jersey. So I went and sat in with them, and it all fit. It worked really well. And in a nightclub where they were playing at the time. And so that's when I joined Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show. And that's how that fell. And so then, you know, we went on to sell 40 million records, and Sylvia's Mother was our first single, and it sold 5 million. And the cover of the Rolling Stone, which actually got the band on the cover. And so, you know, we all of a sudden we're in a movie. Who is Harry Kellerman? Why is he saying those terrible things about me? And that was that song, The Last Morning, was the title song for that movie. And so we'd be hanging out with Dustin during the daytime while he was filming. And then he'd come over to the nightclub in New Jersey where we were playing at, and would sit at the bar because he wanted to see how we acted, how we spoke, what our hippie lifestyle was all about. Mm-hmm. And so occasionally some drunk would be at the bar and he'd say, that guy looks like Dustin Hoffman, you know, and I'd say, nah, that couldn't be him. Hoffman's taller than that, isn't he? You know, Hoffman would give me the finger. You know, it was wonderful, a great thing to do. And he was marvelous guy. And so we filmed a scene at the Fillmore East in front of a Grateful Dead crowd where we were playing. Shel Silverstein, by the way, wrote most of our material on the first and second albums. And Shel's in the audience, and we're doing a song on stage called Bunky and Lucille about a junkie and his old lady. And we bring, Shel comes up, and then Shel sees Georgie Soloway, who is Dustin's character in the movie, and he brings him up. So, nice. And we did it in one take. It was kind of cool. And it was not an up movie, and it wasn't a hit, but if you ever see Who is Harry Kellerman, you'll see us in there. And then we went off and auditioned. That came out on Columbia Masterworks, and so that got us to the attention of Clive Davis, who was running Columbia at that time. So we got an invite to go up to I think it was the 90th floor on the big black rock, the CBS building in New York City. And up we went, and Clive met us at the elevator and walked us into a room that had a stage and 2 seats, where Clive and his vice president, who I think was Kip Cohen at the time, decided whether you had a career in the music business or not. So as soon as I saw that, I realized, we're in trouble now. So I said, excuse me, Clive, where's your office? And he said, across the hall. And I just turned around and walked across the hall into his office, went behind his huge marble kidney desk. And I picked up his trash can, turned it over on the desk. And Ray and Dennis from my band played acoustic guitars, and I played the trash can. And we signed a $750,000
nice
contract that day. Clive said, I must have these guys, because it was, so I knew we needed to do something different. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did.
I think that's magic right there. I've been lucky enough to speak to a wide array of folks. I was telling you some of the names earlier, and some not so popular names. It's just some, true heart entrepreneurs, and the ones that seem to make the splash is because they be themselves. And in being themselves, they're a little different, right? They're not like everyone else because they're being me. You're being you, right?
Yeah. Had we been, this guy signed Chicago. He signed Blood, Sweat, and Tears. He signed all of these legitimate bands. Well, we weren't exactly a legitimate band, but what we were was a bunch of clowns that played music. And but we had some aces in our hole, which was Dennis's voice and the personalities of the guys.
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
So that's how that happened. And where do you want me to go now?
So I see. Here's the question for me. So I know, you've been around a while, right? You got the gray hair going on like I do, right? So you've seen things happen and things change, and being the insider in music and obviously a little bit in the movies. How have you seen things change from the inside out? For the good or for the bad, either way.
Yeah, right. I get you. Well, first of all, let me say that some of the things that are constant are human frailties, such as greed, lack of integrity, ripping off your brother. And what has changed is hopefully people like me pointing those things out to people that are young and just starting out. And it does seem as if that helps, because the younger generation seems more hip to taking care of their business affairs. Now, that could be from the having the internet and having access to all the different brain power and experience from others. But these were things that weren't talked about because we were coming up from the peace, love, and let's do another joint generation. Right. And there were these thieves that were still out there. So you still needed the same protection, but we weren't afforded that. So we had big problems. And yeah,
I know. I've heard, my gosh, so many stories. There's probably more that are untold, where musicians, bands, or single artists just pretty much own nothing, right? They don't, they create all this amazing content and then they don't even own it. I can't fathom that.
Well, that's what happened to me. And it's what happened to the original 5 members of us in the band. We had a thief who was our producer / manager. And that's the name of that tune. And so heck, I still don't get paid, not 1 penny for any of our albums that are sold.
That's crazy.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it drove me crazy. It's why well, I'll get to it in a bit, but it's why I started getting, I became an alcoholic and an addict and very angry man. And so there's been a lot to work through. I noticed that you had you've gone through some things sobriety wise.
Yeah. I had my bout with the devil, and I was lucky enough to come out of that. I won't say unscathed, because you don't go through a journey like that and not have a few scars along the way. But certainly, I came out of it faring a lot better than some folks that I traveled the path with. It was no fun. And I was lucky enough to come out the other side, look that demon in the eye, and say, "I kicked your ass," and learn from it, right? So I think so many that travel that road don't want to look back, and they end up keep traveling it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. In fact, that's key to my own recovery and to my existence these days, and I'll tell you how. I always blamed others for my misfortune, and didn't know that I was doing that, because I thought that I was I didn't do anything to warrant all the stuff that happened. But until I got sober and worked the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't mean to preach, and I'm not,
right,
but I'm talking just subjectively about myself. My story is that when I did step 4 was the first time I got the fact that I had something to do with all of the misfortune, every single bit of it. Now, I don't mean every single bit of what happened. I mean that I on some level I knew, and on some level I participated, whether it be by omission, not much by commission, but by omission. I didn't want to know. So until such time as I did the step 4 and realized that I too was in there, blame wise.
Right.
That's when I started to heal. When I got, I won't say heal, I will say that's when I began to forgive myself, because I never knew that I wasn't forgiving myself. I was hating them, but I never forgave myself for getting drunk and quitting, which is what happened. And so there's been quite a bit that I've had to go through, and it was worth it. It was worth the trip, because I'm just not the same guy I was then. I'm certainly, I'm 15 years away from, 18 years away from alcohol, and 15 years away from drugs. And I got what the guys and girls in AA have, which is, peace and serenity. And not that there's not obstacles to overcome, but if I fear something now, I know when I'm going into fear, as opposed to not feeling anything at all and just diving into it, not even knowing I was in fear. Now I know, because now I have some tools to deal with that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I was when I was going through my sobriety moment, I checked out the programs, right? The NA program. It would have been AA for me. And the biggest problem I had, and whatever works for somebody, and God love them for being there for those that it works for. The problem I had was standing up and saying, I am an addict, because at that point, I didn't feel like an addict anymore.
Yeah.
I was still in a weakened state, right? I got it. But it works for so many. And like I said, God love them for that program. I think it's all the folks that it helps, 2 big thumbs up. I have nothing negative to say about them. I couldn't say those words inside my head and feel like I could heal going forward, because I looked at it as, I'm not an addict anymore. I was an addict yesterday, and I'm not going back that way. I'm going forward. And so following all the other things that made sense with me, it's like, oh man, I can get on this board, separating from all those that were still toying with getting away from it. Not everybody just could walk away. Right? They bounce back and forth and everything. But God love you, man. Congratulations for cracking that shell. And that's no easy job, right?
No, it's not easy, but it was a matter for me of I came down from Marin County, where I lived for 45 years, down to Los Angeles to go into rehab for the first time at age 61. You got to understand now, I got high for 50 years.
My goodness.
And yeah, so, you know, I was dyed in the wool, and, you know, just love my single malt scotch and cocaine. So, and then when I could no longer afford the cocaine, it was meth. You know, it didn't, I mean, I have gone from, like I say, selling 40 million records to being homeless, living in the woods, in a motorhome that had no roof, no plumbing. And as long as I could get what I needed to get, I was okay with it. I lived there 6 months. So I was well on my way to, I mean, if I didn't get sober, I'd be dead. We would not be having this conversation.
Right.
But for me, when I was in rehab, I started getting dreams. And one of the dreams I had was I was walking up the stairs in the house where I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey. And I was a kid. And as I'm coming up the stairs, I looked in my bedroom and I saw this old man laying in bed. And then it occurred to me that the old man was me. And so I was looking from a child's perspective to myself today. And that's when I woke up, and it was like, oh my God. Oh, and then I dreamt that I had, I started getting high again, and I woke up hearing the words, but that didn't happen. And I said it, but it wasn't me that said it. And that certainly woke me up. So after 45 days in rehab, I came home I was living with this girl down here in Los Angeles, and I was going to nighttime rehab, and I was still very angry because I mean, you know, 50 years of getting loaded and 45 days of not doing anything does not make you a nice guy.
Yeah.
And so they suggested I go to a men's sober living. Oh, okay, sure. So I then went into a place called Genesis House, to which I owe my life, I think. And Genesis House was for musicians, and it was funded by Music Cares, which is here in Los Angeles. That's huge, because they will give you, if you've done records, they will give you a scholarship to live there. Now, living there means they feed you. You have to go to all of the meetings. There's not a day goes by that you don't have a meeting to go to. You have to give people your plans of what it is that you're going to do, and do them. And most of all for me was, now I'm 61 and I moved into a sober living house, and there was 19 20-year-olds living there. And me. So I didn't like their music. I didn't like the fact that their pants were saggy. I didn't like anything. But now I love them, because I lived there for a year and a half, became a manager. And so I would never have done anything like that. Never have done anything. I would have preferred in my cups, in my addiction, I would have preferred being homeless rather than 19, 20-year-olds. Get out of here. Get the hell. But that's what happened. And so that's when I began to learn about acceptance. And so there you go.
Nice. There's a lot of some amazing gems inside there, right? It's funny is when I was the 19 or 20-year-old, I actually enjoyed the company of older folks, but then I had some amazing older folks that were in my life. I had a great grandma who had literally come from Florence, Kansas to Southern California, where they lived in a covered wagon when she was a child. Wow. And then in her early years, her mom and her were servants, housekeepers of the Nixon family up in Whittier. And so, hearing those stories for me was like history from
Sure.
not from a book, but from the person that actually lived it,
Yeah.
and then, my great father and my great grandfather, they built their home, they got one of those homestead plots. They built their home themselves. So all these amazing stories. So if I would have been one of those 20-year-olds in that home with you, I probably would have been picking your brain about all the amazing things you had done as a musician.
Yeah, but there was that. I mean, they would, put up some of my albums on the wall and stuff. And I can't stop anybody from doing anything like that. And frankly, I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the place was for musicians. And so there was drums that were set up, and there were a lot of guitar players, bass players, etc., singers. Yeah.
So here's a question. Did you find in your rehab, I probably not in the actual rehab home itself, the 45 days, but certainly in that facility, the Genesis house, did you find therapy in your music?
You're now listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
What I found at first was fear, because I was afraid to play because I didn't think I could now that I was sober. And when I found that I could, that was cool, because then I could start to play out a little bit. And I still, I didn't know what my higher power had in store for me that way, but I knew it was not to join a band. I did that. Thank you. And also, let me mention at this point that after Dr. Hook, after I quit, I put a band together with David Crosby, and we toured until his hobby got him arrested in Dallas. And
a few folks have heard about that.
Yeah. I was the only witness to the bust. In fact,
my goodness.
Yeah, in Dallas. And so it's why I'm in 3 chapters of his first autobiography, Long Time Gone. And now I'm writing my own autobiography. And it's called Don't Blame the Music. And I've got stories ranging from little kids to the Beatles in there. And these are all personal reminiscences and of some of the most extraordinary things. And so I'm working through the chapter right now about my experiences in Dr. Hook. Now that is daunting, because I have to reface again how I was. And so I have to, I've just begun it. I have the whole rest of the book finished, and I have this chapter to do. And then there'll be the normal things. I mean, I never wrote a book before, but it's time.
Right.
And what's happened since I gotten sober? Well, let's see. After David Crosby, I worked with Dan Hicks and the Hot Licks, and with both of these guys, I was singing. I always arranged the vocals in whatever group I was in, because I live for harmony. And so now I'm writing about all of these things, and that's what I'm currently doing.
Sweet. Do you think you maybe subconsciously, purposefully left this chapter for last because of digging up the old feelings and the old memories?
I did not know any of this was going to occur like this. And now that what I'm left with is the Dr. Hook story, I find myself, I have to go back down through the dirt and the slime and the mud and go through it again. Now, mind you, we're rock and roll, quote unquote, stars. And so I got a ton of stories like that. But when I get when I write about my feelings and what happened as it relates to not just business, but people in the band, it's hurtful, but it's something that I that comes with the J territory. So,
right. You're telling your story, man. And I get it. I think probably, and I've read a lot of the autobiographies as well as just biographies of some of my favorite bands. And I think the one that really hit me the most, and maybe you can, I don't know if you've read this one or not, it's called The Heroine Diaries by Nikki Sixx.
No.
And he tells his story of when he obviously, we all know the drug scene. Well, I know those that watched Motley Crue, blow up and then come crashing down and almost disappear for a while. Drugs was a big part of that scene.
Sure.
And he got really, really hooked on heroin, and he used to journal a lot. And then when he came out the other side on his sobriety, he decided to write about it. So he went back to some of his journals, of course, back to get stories from people. He had scraps of paper, and he was just telling this story. And it was cool to read the book, but then he came out with an album that told the story in song as well. So as you're listening to the album, if you've read the book, you know exactly the moment in his story that song is talking about. And it was kind of a cool combination, where he mixed the two genres of art with that. It's cool. Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
Well, I've done 2 solo CDs. The first one was in 2001, and I played all the instruments and did all the voices myself. And then I did another one 3 years ago, and they've sold in 10 different countries. I mean, mind you, they're being marketed by me,
right?
And so, I mean, I noticed some of your past podcasts, and I'm going to be watching those because some of them interest me. From one guy I know, Larry Hankin, to how to market, because I'm always looking for ways to market. And, as an entrepreneur, I tend to be a little suspicious of that with regards to calling myself that. But what I do know is what stayed alive for me was my sense of humor. And, so there, and I have about 5,000 friends on Facebook, and, it's just, I got to finish the project first, and
right.
That's the deal. So that's, I've retired from anything else, and I'm just home, and that's what I'm up to. But I did take acting lessons. I figured I'm in LA. Why not?
Why not?
And so I auditioned for a TV show called Glee and got the part. Never having acted before, and I got the part of a retired piano player in an old age home for musicians, and it was myself, Tim Conway, Billy D. Williams, and June Squibb, and we played the 4 characters in the home, and it was the episodes entitled "Old Dog, New Tricks," and so that was good. That was my first entree into doing something like that, and but now because of the pandemic, I'm not getting out. I'm just not going to do that, so I'll stay home and write.
So first off, Glee, cool show. I've seen some of quite a few of the episodes, but one of the names you dropped right there, Tim Conway, what an icon for humor. Right?
Oh, man.
I mean, I know you and I probably both, I grew up with him. I think you were a few years ahead of me, but still, we're talking the Carol Burnett show is a staple on Sunday nights in most of American homes. And this guy could just make your belly ache. You were laughing so hard.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked him what, we would take from our dressing rooms on Paramount. They brought these little carts to drive you to the soundstage, and he and I would share a cart. And I remember saying, "Tim, how is it working with Harvey Korman?" And he looked at me and he said, "He was a poor performer, And he just, and he said it with a straight face, and it just killed me. But Tim's strength, as I see it, was when he decided to go off script and make up stuff himself.
Right.
That's when some of his funniest sets, when you saw Corman breaking up at what Tim was doing, they used to record 2 shows, one as more or less a run through, and then the second one was later on that day.
Right.
And so the first one, Tim would not do anything except say the lines. And he did that purposely because when they did the one that was going to be shown on TV, that's when he did all the other stuff. And so everything came as a surprise to Corman.
No,
and, it's wonderful. And so I know that in this episode of Glee, he decided to go off script and go do some stuff. And one of the stars of Glee said, "You got to stop doing that." And they escorted him off the soundstage. And I thought, what a jerk! What a jerk! Let this man go. Let him rock out, man. You don't know who you're talking about.
That's right. That's his magic right there.
Exactly.
I think him and Robin Williams, when it comes to impromptu humor, those guys are just magicians with it. Anyway,
speaking of Robin, he and I did a show together at a place called the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, and I went with my then wife. And after the show was over, the three of us sat down and talked for a while and had some coffee. And my wife was working with Coco the gorilla. Do you know who Coco is?
I do know who Coco is.
Okay. Well, she was one of a 3-woman team teaching Coco sign language because her folks were deaf. And so she grew up signing. And so she was telling Robin about that. And Robin was really intrigued by it. And so the following day, his manager called me and they donated $5,000 to the Gorilla Foundation.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
Yeah. And I later saw some photos of him sitting with Coco, and I have done the same thing with Coco. And so it's wonderful. That it's just wonderful. The connection.
That's awesome. So sweet.
Yeah.
Okay. So how far out do you think your book is? A month, a year, 6 months?
That depends on something I know nothing about. That's
okay.
Published.
Gotcha. Are you going to be self-publishing the book?
Well, I would love to be able to get picked up by a publisher.
Sure.
I would love that. That would be good, at least for distribution.
Right.
But if I have to, I will self-publish. But I would prefer to
sure. Yeah.
To be published.
Got it. All right. So you're going to have to keep me posted. We'll stay connected so that when that book finally comes out, I want to make sure to help you promote it. We'll make sure we'll get information down here in the show notes so people can go check it out. And then, if it's like months from now, I'll redo this episode again. I'll reshare it with everybody so they can hear you talk about it, and then that will push them to do it. So I'm on board. I want to help you out with that one. Absolutely.
Thanks. Thank you, Tracy.
My pleasure. So you mentioned a little bit earlier about ethics in the music business, right? You kind of scratched on that topic. Do you want to dig in there a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Like I say, greed is not a fad. All of the basic human elements, whether they be positive or negative, continue. Humans being humans. Mm-hmm. And in my particular case, I didn't want to know, so I turned my back on myself, and I did not know that. Others that were getting paid under the table turned their back on the rest of us. And so I did not know that until I left the band. And so that's when I realized that I should have spoken up for myself. Sure. And I did not. And so that was one of the reasons I was hating myself, because I should have done that, but I didn't. I didn't have anybody to go to, and I was solitary in this, and all I was doing was feeling pain. And then I got drunk, and 4 plane rides into a 5 plane ride day from Fargo to Dallas, and Dennis and I got into an argument, the lead singer, and I quit and flew home that day. And that was it. That was it. So
for any of our budding entrepreneurs, and heck, even budding musicians that are out there, right? Actually, my son-in-law is he's the bass guitarist for a band whose music I know you wouldn't like, but certainly they've been out there. They've been grinding away for a couple of years now, seen a little bit of success. They were on tour with a a band whose name a lot of folks would recognize. And I'm very proud of them. But for all those budding folks out there, given your experience, what should they watch out for?
Anybody that makes the decisions. If they're making bad decisions, then you got to take a real close look at who they are, because why would people make bad decisions for a group of people all going for the same end result?
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody makes a decision that you know is wrong and you don't say anything, or you don't get yourself representation for just you, then that ball starts rolling. And if, on the other side, for those people that are making the bad decisions, if nobody says anything for whatever reason, if they're intimidated, if they're in cahoots, but if nobody says anything, they don't know that what they know is nobody's stopping them.
Right.
And that continues going. So I would suggest jumping on it right away. If somebody, I mean, we all make mistakes, but if somebody makes, you'll know when it has no integrity, and speak up then, and don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think sometimes it may even start off as, oops, I made a boo-boo. But then later on, they're like, well, gosh, I got away with that. I wonder if I could get away with this. Sure. And it's like, it's not like they just went from 0 to 500. They're like, they went from 0 to 1, and then 5, and then 10. And, and the next thing you know, they're like, well, shit, they're not paying any attention. I'm just going to take as much as I can.
Yeah, amen. That's exactly what happened. Yeah, exactly what happened. And the band continued going 15 years after I left. And it cost them almost $1 million to buy out the contract from the same person.
That's crazy.
And it is. Yeah, it is. Which just happened to be the exact amount that they made on their last tour.
Go figure.
Yeah, imagine that. Down to the penny. So I would suggest, that our situation took it to the nth degree, and that's what I have to offer with regards.
Yeah, and I think that implies in so many areas of life, not just business or not just music. Is like, if you see somebody or feel like someone's taking advantage of you in any way, right? Personal, spiritual, medical, I don't care what it is. Speak up, right? I mean, and say something now so that they realize, oh shit, I'm not going to be able to do that to this person, and then they'll go move on and to someone else. Or if it was an innocent mistake, everyone can walk away and go, okay, sorry, my bad. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, with not good motivations, you may not find out as quickly as you'd like to, but what they will find out is that you're speaking up for yourself.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to be getting some brand new feedback, because they're either going to be howling at the moon at you, they're going to run, or they're going to try and talk you out of it. And those are very informative conversations that people have. So
I was about ready to say, any one of those would be a flag on the play, right?
Amen. Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So, have you, since I know you guys have been, the band has been separated for decades now, have you reconnected with any of the guys from the band back in the day?
Just George. Of the original 5 of us, 2 are dead. And so it's George, myself, and Dennis. And Dennis, for some reason, is still mad at me. I tried to join his fan club, and he bounced me out of it. I don't know. I don't know what that's all about. But there you have it.
He's still carrying something that you have learned to set down, right?
Yeah, apparently. And so he's got, as the last man standing, he lives in England, and he's got a group of musicians. And he's touring now as Dr. Hook, starring Dennis LeCourrier. And they're doing well, but they're playing our material. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like a cover band, with one original.
Yeah, I hear you. I have a similar story as an artist that we follow. His name is Tommy Vexed. And he and some other guys had formed a band called Bad Wolves. And when everything started to go down last year around the election, he's on one side of the political spectrum, and the rest of his bandmates are on a different side. And that caused a big rift. And the management at the same time started saying, okay, Tommy, you're out. Here's the thing. Contractually, he owned the music. He owned the band name, right? And so they were trying to take that away from him. And he's been fighting with them since probably December. And probably a good thing with everything that was going on with COVID is that nobody could tour, right? So there was no big monies being made or lost in the process. And we've been watching him on Instagram, and he's very polite, very professional. He says what he feels, but he doesn't throw people under the bus or do that angry speak where he makes up things just to make you feel bad about him. But we saw him on tour for the first time just here recently up in Green Bay. And again, he's still fighting it. And he markets himself right now as Tommy Vex, the voice of Bad Wolves. Right. Sure. Until he can finish this legal battle as they continue to try and silence him. And when I learned that I was going to be lucky enough to get you on the show and you put that on here, that, the music and integrity, I was like, oh my God, this is such a important message for people to hear, because there are powers out there that will do things just for the money. I don't care that you created it. I don't care that you own it. I'm going to take it from you. Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. And I will say this with regards to your friend's situation, if I may, is that okay?
Please go ahead.
Okay. With my band, Dennis owned and does continue to own the name Dr. Hook. Now, the reason it's not Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show is because they had to change the name legally to get away from me and my federal lawsuit. The reason they left California is they went to Nashville to get away from me and my state lawsuit. The reason they put out the album Bankrupt was because the manager forced them to go bankrupt so there was no money. So in other words, he took the money, left them with nothing, and had them go bankrupt. And they then put out an album called Bankrupt. Now, years later, when Dennis now owned the name, Ray Sawyer, the guy with the patch in the band, had to actually pay Dennis to use the name Dr. Hook. So he wanted to tour himself, and he had to pay Dennis to use the name Dr. Hook. So right now, your friend owns the name of the band. What happened in our situation was, not my situation, but their situation was Ray sued him and won the right to not have to pay him anymore. So these things go on all the time. So tell him to keep the name.
Yeah, keep the name.
Keep the name.
Keep fighting the good fight, everybody.
That's right.
And
exactly.
And like you mentioned earlier, when you start feeling something's wrong, seek counsel. Say something. Seek counsel. Get yourself some representation. Ask questions. And then then take action from there. If nothing happens, then at least you're educated for the next time.
Yeah. Right. Sure. Yeah. But if you don't do anything, they're going to continue doing stuff.
Yeah, and they're going to continue doing more. That's the bigger fear, right?
Yeah. Well, brother, this has been wonderful speaking.
Jay, man, thanks so much for hanging out and spending some time with me. And I definitely, honestly, I want to stay connected with you. Definitely let me know when I want to know when that book is coming out so that I can help you Trace. Get it out there on the market.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. You take care of yourself. Okay?
You do the same, Jay. Thanks so much, brother.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Right. Bye-bye.
All right, my Dark Horse friends and family, there you have it. The man himself, Jay David, dropping Rolling Stone cover-worthy bombs on us today. What resonated with you? Let me tell you with some things that kind of clicked with me. Thought number one, be different. Jay was telling us about his audition way back with Clive Davis, who was running Columbia at the time. Now, Imagine, if you will, the number of bands that were trying to get that man's attention. Now, of those that actually made it to that small stage in the black granite building that he mentioned about, right, the small stage with the 2 chairs, imagine how many of those actually garnered his attention and made an impression. If you got to that small stage with the 2 chairs, what would you do? You'd want to be different, right? Remember back in episode 290, Mike Malkowitz told us about being different, about having dad-approved marketing. Now, here's where Jay took the reins and asked Clive, hey, dude, where's your office at? And then when he was showed where that office was, he went in there, flipped that trash can on its end, and the band followed suit by playing and auditioning on an empty trash can and acoustic guitars. This level of being different landed them, right, a $750,000 deal back in the day when that was a heck of a lot of money. It's a lot of money today, but back then, even more. So here's my question for you. How can you be different in what you do? What trash cans can you flip over and start to play to garner the attention of those around you? How can you garner the attention of your prospects, your peers, your audience? For some ideas, go back to episode 290 and check out some great ideas that Mike shared about being different and dad-approved marketing. Thought number 2, constants and changes. Jay reminded us about the constants that are out there, and they kind of change too, but they're still out there. He was right to call this one out specifically because they are in all, and I do mean all, lines of business. Jay was kind when he called it human frailties. I'm just going to point it out for what I think it is specifically. Greed. There it is. Right? One of the 7 deadly sins. Whether it's the greed for the almighty dollar or that greed of power, this can be intoxicatingly dangerous. So mind yourself and mind those within your sphere of influence, right? Remind them as well. Prep them and prep yourself in advance, right? So that you're not so easily swayed when it pops its tempting head up. And trust me, it will pop its tempting head up, right? Prep your mentees, prep your students, and even those that you have zero interest in or zero investment in. Prep them as well. For if we, right, as the entrepreneurs and business owners and just caring folk that are out there, if we can curtail this constant, this ever-changing constant, even a single %, then the winnings from that effort are gonna be freaking huge. Thought number 3, protect your content. Jay and others have fallen prey over the years to those that are willing to steal their content and leave the creators of that very content with virtually or literally nothing to show for it. That's it. Just maybe the song. Right? Oh, it's his voice on there. That's his drums on there. Yeah. Make sure that you are protecting your content, especially if you enter into a deal with another party, whether you're going to use it for or partner up with them for production or distribution of that content, whatever it may be. Make sure all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed so that you do not fall victim, right, to the dealing with that greed we just talked about a little bit earlier. For my friend, it is out there. And it's really sad because these are the folks that cannot or will not create on their own. So what do? They come to you. They come to me. They come to Jay and folks like them and steal yours to make it theirs. Do not give them the chance. And if you do give them the chance, make sure you protect your content. And thought number 4, stop blaming others. Jay called this one out point blank. Stop blaming others for your failures. Look, I get it. Sometimes people steal from you. They lie to you. They use you to their benefit and sometimes your detriment. But if you don't do anything about it, then my friend,
it's your fault. If you didn't prep yourself for that constant that we just talked about, then you have some level of responsibility for not having done so. And let's be honest, this is an ugly habit that many of us have. We want to blame others for our own failures. I think I even fell prey to it myself. If I think about one of my early ventures, I was determined to succeed. I got up every morning and I worked for hours writing and emailing and reaching out to prospects and promoting my services and organizing my products. But after about a year, I still didn't think I had enough customers. So you know what I did? I quit. I just laid it down, walked away. However, I laid the blame at the feet of my competitors. Right? Saying things to myself like, there's simply too many people out there doing the same thing I'm trying to do. That whole red ocean, blue ocean thing. I'd say to myself, that's why I failed. Is that the true reason for my failure? Yeah, I can feel you shaking your head. No, not no, but hell no. I failed because I quit. That was the number one reason. I think the second reason I failed is because I wasn't targeting the right people. Maybe my services were inferior. I don't think that's the case, right? I think I was providing a really good service. But more likely, my marketing did not appeal to my most valued prospective customers and clients and prospects. Either way, the real blame laid at my feet. Because I didn't get up there and fix my marketing. I didn't get up there and dial my target again. Not at the feet of others. No, right? Perhaps you, my friend, are facing a similar blame game. Take a look. Peek at yourself. Look at that man in the mirror. Look at that woman in the mirror and stop blaming others. All right, so what inspiring ideas, tips, or thoughts resonated with you, Let me know. Really. Seriously, I want you to, first off, take some time today, right now if you can, and write them down. That way, you can get out there and you can put them into action. You can get out there, you can run your race, you can get your results, and then you can email me and tell me all about them. Seriously, Tracy at darkhorseschooling.com. Share the ideas or tips that you came away with, how you put them into action, and what results you gain from them. Probably even, you know what? I will bring you on the show and let you share your story and talk about your wins. Hey, even some of your losses if you'd like. All right. So next week we're going to be talking to Elizabeth Otis. Now, Elizabeth is a high energy, transformative speaker and a movement influencer. She's the CEO and founder of Be Live, a movement set out to teach people how to break free of limitations, consciously create one's own reality, and identify what they came to this planet to accomplish. Man, you're not going to want to meet this one. Now, I know you want to keep getting all these valuable tips and these amazing stories from the guests I'm lucky enough to bring on. So please make sure you go on down there, hit that subscribe button. Hey, you know what? And as long as you're there, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and drop some kind words in the reviews. Ask questions. I read every single one of these reviews. And lastly, do not keep all this entrepreneurial GOLD all to yourself. Share this podcast with other entrepreneurs and business owners that you know would get value from it. And with that, I'm going to leave you as I always do. Think successfully and take action. Thank you for listening to the Dark Horse Entrepreneur Podcast.
And you know this!
Thanks for tuning in.
Check us out at www.darkhorseschooling.com.
All right.
My name is Tracy Brinkman.